Hey everyone, welcome back to Bryan's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. Today we will be talking about the devastating case of the Yosemite National Park Sightseer murders, which occurred on February 12, 1999, when Carol's son, who was 42 years old at the time, her daughter Julie, who was 15, their foreign exchange student, Sylvania Peloso, who was 16, they were living in Eureka, California at the time, and they had planned to go on vacation in and around the Yosemite National Park area, which is pictured here. It's in the United States in the Sierra Mountains. They left their home in Eureka, California. They first flew to San Francisco. Carol rented a red 1999 Pontiac Grand Prix. They then stopped in Stockton, where Julie took part in a cheerleading contest which was planned at the University of the Pacific. Then they headed to the Cedar Lodge, which is in El Porto, on February 14th of 1999, which is located on Yosemite's western slope. This is just a map of what their possible route must have been. This is a picture of the three women, Julie, Carol, and Sylvania Peloso. Carol's husband, Jans, was staying in Stockton because they had a real estate business there. They were eventually going to meet up later. These three women got a room at the Yosemite Cedar Lodge, pictured here. Their plan was to only stay a few days, and we do know that on February 15th, they went into Yosemite National Park, hiked several of the trails. From what we later found out, it looked wonderful from the pictures that we saw. Everything was going great. The ladies looked like they were having a great time. We do know that later that evening, they went back to the Cedar Lodge. In the lobby of this lodge, there was apparently an area where they could rent movies. The ladies were tired. They just decided to rent a movie at the hotel, go back up to their room and watch it. Then their plan was to go back to San Francisco, where they were going to meet up with Jans, eventually fly out to Arizona. However, unfortunately, this was the last time that the ladies were seen alive. According to what the lodge staff claimed, they said that when they went to clean the room the following day, they saw no evidence of a struggle or anything that made them suspicious. Checkout had already been done in advance, and the keys were left on the room desk. Jans, however, had become worried because he was supposed to meet the women back in San Francisco. At first, he just thought maybe they just flew on to Arizona on their own. However, after repeated attempts to contact the lodge, getting no further info from them, then contacting the car rental agency where they had rented the Pontiac, he found out that it was not returned and they were being charged for extra days. This is when Jans contacted the police. Yosemite Park rangers and local police immediately began to search the area where the missing had last been seen. They just thought that at first they had probably wandered off one of the main hiking paths and gotten lost. For 4 weeks, the police, the family, various volunteers, they searched by helicopter, on foot. The weather had been getting snowier and icier. They had no evidence of anything. They couldn't find any evidence of the missing 1999 Pontiac Grand Prix or any evidence of the women. It was just like they had vanished into thin air. They even got volunteers from the local area that went out on foot. They had people coming in from different counties to help with this search. It was a massive effort to try and find these women or any sort of clue to help them figure out where these women could be. Then something bizarre happened. Carol's wallet was found in Modesto, which included all of her money and credit cards. This is roughly 2 hours away from where the women were staying. This is when the FBI got involved. FBI agent Nick Rossi said on February 26th, quote unquote, "At this point, we have not yet uncovered evidence to allow us to determine conclusively whether this was a tragic accident or a criminal act." 2 weeks later, FBI agent James Maddock was in charge of this investigation, told the press that we feel almost certain now that the women were victims of some kind of a violent crime. Over the next weeks, the FBI conducted searches all over the area where the wallet was found. Jan's son offered a $250,000 reward for any information leading to the return of the women, ultimately up to $300,000. Even Carol's parents appeared on Good Morning America to try and get any information from the public, and still they just couldn't get any info or any leads. That was until March 18th, when a hiker had just wandered off trail, found a site of the burnt out red 1999 Pontiac off Highway 108 in Stanislaus Forest. Once the vehicle had been found, they brought in various forensic teams. The FBI teams arrived on the 19th. Sadly, that is when they discovered two of the women's bodies in the trunk of this burnt out car. They were eventually taken back to the medical examiner's office, where they were positively identified as Carol Sund and Sylvania Peloso's remains via dental records. At this point, they still had no idea where Julie Sund was until March 25th, when she was discovered near Lake Pedro, which is in Tuolumne County. Sadly, she was severely decomposed, but it was obvious that this was an act of homicide. According to records, over the next weeks, the police and FBI formed a special task force. They were certain that the killer was familiar with the area because the car was apparently hidden off of a spur road where apparently locals dump old things like cars and washing machines and things like that. So they immediately started bringing in suspected offenders. During this time, they brought in over a dozen people, including several women that they questioned in connection with these killings. One of these people that was brought in was by the name of Carrie Stainer, who was working at the Cedar Lodge as a handyman, but he had no criminal record, and his only encounter with the law was years ago for some misdemeanor charge, so he was later released along with all the other suspects. Sadly, though, then there was another murder. Joy Ruth Armstrong, who was only 26 years old, she was working for the Park Service at the time. She was living in an area called the Forester Community, which is a group of roughly 30 cabins used by the park workers. Joy had had plans to meet up with a friend in Sausalito, California. When she never showed up for that trip, the friend contacted the Park Service. The Park Service then located her car parked right in front of her cabin, fully packed with all of her belongings, but there was no sign of Joy. Tragically, after searching for a little bit, they found her body next to a stream, part of her other body in another area. It was just absolutely awful. She had been working for the Yosemite Institute for over a year, working on education programs through the partnership with the National Park Service. Based on the evidence, they believe that she had been murdered on the evening of Wednesday, July 21st, because she had been seen earlier that day at the Institute offices. After this tragedy, many of the agencies working on this case believed that they had not thoroughly investigated Gary Stainer, so they brought him back in. They forced him to answer more questions. They were able to get a search warrant for his truck, confiscated things like his backpack and other items for examination. Stainer's apartment was later searched, and they found evidence that linked him to Miss Armstrong's murder. Special Agent Maddock is quoted in saying, "During the last 24 hours, we have developed specific information linking Stainer possibly to the Sund Peloso murders as well." On Friday, July 23rd, Stainer had disappeared from the area. He was told not to leave the area, but when agents came to arrest him, he was gone. Thankfully, due to the high press this case got, one of the managers of an area that he liked to frequent, which is an area called Laguna del Sol, he was seen there. This man contacted the FBI. The FBI immediately came and arrested him. This man was so disturbed that on his way to the police interview in the car, he confessed to the detective of the crime against Joey Armstrong, describing it in detail. Then he further said that he wanted them to make a movie of the week made about this story. In one of his interviews, he quoted in saying that he had fantasized about killing women for at least the last 30 years of his life, went into detail that I can't go into here. It's just absolutely awful. He told about how he abandoned the women's car. He told about everything that he did to them. His interview was just absolutely traumatizing to anyone who reads or hears about it. I'm sorry I can't put it on here, but it is just awful. This man is just an absolute psychopath. Even without the confession, the FBI had already obtained enough evidence from his hotel room number 509 at the Cedar Lodge Motel, and he did several of these terrible crimes. The FBI laboratory was able to use their forensics teams and use vacuum sweepings that were taken from inside Joy's cabin, along with various evidence that they found inside the other rooms after they went back and did more vacuum sweepings, and were able to retrieve evidence from the vacuum cleaners that had cleaned the rooms that the other women had been staying at. This was enough to put him away for life for the murder of Joy Armstrong. The trial, however, for Cary Stayner for the other 3 women was moved from Mariposa County to Santa Clara County, California. In May of 2002, Stayner pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity in the murders of Miss Peloso and the Sund women, which just makes me absolutely sick, because he admitted that he was able to gain entry to their room under the guise of saying that he was the handyman, which he was, saying that he just needed to repair stuff, which he then went on to do unspeakable things to these poor women, which again I can't go into. And if you want to read about it, I'll have it in the description, but I highly recommend you don't read about it because it's just awful. In the case of Julie Sund, he actually said that he took her out to where she was found and told her that he loved her before doing what he did to her. And it's just, to me, is just unspeakable, and it's just unbelievable that these kind of sick people actually are around. They did extensive interviews and testings on him. They gave him multiple psych tests, all of which proved that he was not insane. He knew exactly what he was doing. Further, they interviewed people that were considered friends or people that knew him or that employed him and said, oh no, he was always like a nice guy. They never could have imagined this. And in fact, some of these newspaper articles that I've been showing you, in one, it actually states that the arrest of Cary Stayner was a stunner. His friends or people that knew him or former employers could not believe that he was the one that was found to be charged with this. He, of course, tried all these fancy lawyer tricks and different things. Of course, his family pleaded with the jury and people to give him sympathy or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but when you read the facts of what this man actually did, it is deplorable. And he got life in prison for Joy's murder. He is sitting on death row for the other 3 murders. Unspeakable. This is a picture of one of his most recent mugshots while he is still rotting in prison where he belongs. Who knows what other horrific crimes this man did before he was actually caught. When speaking to his colleagues or former employers, the interviewees said that the only thing that they knew about him was that he loved to go to these nudist colonies. That's the only thing, and that they said that he was a loner and just kind of weird. Personally, I just hope he has to live out the rest of his life in prison and rots there where he belongs. I want to dedicate this video to all the women that lost their lives at this terrible monster. I can't imagine what your families and friends have gone through. I want to dedicate this to you. My thoughts and prayers go out to all of you, and just hoping that you are able to find peace. I am so sorry for your loss. Thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate all your feedback, your comments, and your support. Please leave me any comments on this case or any other cases that you'd like me to cover. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. Hopefully I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me till the end. I know this is a very difficult case to talk about and to hear. Many of you had requested that I cover this case. I'm trying to cover all the cases that you request, no matter what, and I'm trying to do them in the order in which you request them. Plus, I also think that the family deserves a voice, and I am glad that they got some semblance of justice. However, nothing can ever bring back their loved ones, and I just hope and pray that that monster stays in prison for the rest of his life. That's just my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I'm always open to hearing your comments and your feedback. If you have any case suggestions or feedback, my email is always in the description. I want to say thank you for all my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please consider it. It's free, and I will always work hard to cover any cases that you'd want me to, as well as continue to assist any SAR teams as much as I can. Thank you again for watching and all your support. I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks again.